Hey YouTubers, here's the small John Deere 5 horsepower 20-inch cut. It's quite a small snowblower. What's happening with this blower at this point is when I put down the drive clutch or lever, it doesn't want to go forward. Now there's a problem here where the gear shifter, where it's jammed, you cannot move the gears inside. So I assume that that's what the problem is. Now to do that, I'm going to have to take off the belly pan on it and see what's going on in there. So it'll be much easier to work on the blower with it being up on its front end like that. And this is the belly pan we're going to be taking off. I've already got the little bolts loose. And there's 6 little bolts you need to remove. And they're all 3/8. Now the pan's going to come off. Now what I'm assuming that's wrong with it is when you go to move the gear shifter here, it will not move. And that's because where the friction disc is supposed to slide on the shaft here, it's pretty rusted and it's kind of jammed in there. You can kind of see if I try to move the gear shift, it's all jammed up down there. There, it moved now. But it's so hard to move. Now it's jammed in that position. Well, I'm going to get out the old Quicker State 1 lube penetrating oil. I'm going to spray that shaft and clean it off and hopefully get most of the rust off, and then put some low temp grease on there, or lithium grease, and we should be back in business. Now a lot of people say you cannot find this in stores. Well, as long as you get any penetrating oil that shows the flammable logo here, it's good for quick start as well. So you don't have to use this brand name of penetrating oil. I was just using it because it's convenient, it's good for quick start, it's got oil, and it's cheaper. So anyways, let's keep going. I'm going to spray the shaft here on both sides. It's going to make a bit of a mess, and I am going to have to clean up the friction disc after because it can make it slippery. But I'm not going to worry about that right now. Now I'm going to work the gear shifter until it frees itself. So I've got it to move in this direction now. I'm going to spray the shaft here. Now I'll work the gear shift again. Now you can see that we're starting to get somewhere. So now what I'm going to do is grab a rag with some gas on it without any oil in it and clean off that shaft of all that crud that's on there. I'm just going to soak a nice white rag so we can see how much dirt's coming off. And you may have to repeat the process if your rag gets dry. Always be careful with gas in your shop. Now get down in there and clean that shaft off. You can turn the wheels to turn the shaft. Look what's already come off. Now that's a buildup of crud over many years. To the next position. Now what this has done is it's moved the whole drive to the other side, and now I can clean that side of the shaft. Remember, you can turn the wheels to turn the shaft so you can clean all sides. Now you may have to repeat the process by moving the gear shift back and forth so you can clean the shaft off more than once. All the dirt that came off that shaft. Now I'm going to give it one more wipe. And more stuff did come off. Now what I'm going to use today is a lithium based grease. The reason why I'm going to use that is because in the winter time this grease is going to stay nice and soft. It's not going to get stiff. What happens sometimes is people use wheel bearing grease that is not good in low temperatures, and it gets hard and stiff, which makes changing the gears on your snowblower really hard because that grease isn't flexible anymore. So I'm just going to put a bit of grease and slide a film on each side of the shaft. Don't use too much grease because it's going to splatter and go on the friction wheel and cause slippage. Now I'll move the gear shifter back and forth so that the grease gets everywhere. Now I'll leave it at that side and grease this side over here. Remember, just put a thin film. Now the gears are going to be nice and smooth to change. Now while I've got the belly pan off, I'm going to take advantage to grease up the chains and sprockets on there. And what I'm using for that is a low temp grease, like a snowmobile grease. And I know that this grease isn't going to harden up in the wintertime. I just got a bit of grease on my finger there. I'm going to turn the wheels and spread a nice thin film of grease all over. And I'll repeat the process on this chain here. Remember, you don't need to put excessive amounts of grease because that can end up causing problems, and the grease can get on the friction wheel and then your drive's going to slip. So this will be good. Now because I got oil on the friction wheel disc, I'm going to grab a fresh rag with a bit of gas on there. Make sure it's not mixed gas. And now I'm going to clean up the friction disc and the friction wheel of any oil residue that's on there. So reach in there and clean it nice and good. To get this out of the way, just change the gears. Then you'll be able to reach the rest of the disc. Now it's super important that there's no grease or oil on these parts. Or else, like I said, you're going to find that it slips. So this is all the dirt and oil that came off just that one bottom disc. Now I'm going to do the rubber friction wheel. Now to do that, just put your rag with fresh gas right on the wheel and then turn the snowblower wheels, and this will make the friction wheel turn. So here's a bit of dirt that came off that wheel. Now you want to feel everything again with your fingers to make sure it's absolutely dry, and this is really dry. There's no grease that's going to get on there, so that looks good. So now I'm going to quickly try it out to see if the drive works on this blower. Remember to be very careful if you're going to start stuff indoors. At all times, if you can, take your stuff outside. If you do start it indoors, make sure you get a lot of ventilation. I'm pleased with that. It works good. It's an easy fix. It didn't cost anything, maybe a few cents of gas. Now when you're done doing this job, just reinstall the belly pan. Stick back all the bolts in here and you're done. So save yourself a lot of money. Try doing it yourself. It's going to be a heck of a lot cheaper and affordable to keep these older machines if you can do some of the work yourself like that. In the next video of the John Deere 520, I'll be showing how to replace the wheel axle bushings. They are situated right in here and right in there, and as you can see, this one's pretty loose. So remember that this snowblower here is made by MTD. If you have an older snowblower made by MTD and it looks the same, well, it is the same. So a lot of the work that I'm doing on this machine could apply to your snowblower as well. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in my next video.